Well, hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. We have made it. Hello. Welcome to Phoebe's Place, and I am the host, Phoebe Wells. And what my show is about is basically resource. Let's have discussions about different topics. And this month, we are talking about what about the children. So, this particular segment, we're going to cater to child welfare. And I keep telling y'all, I know some important people. So we have the lovely Mrs. Kayla. Is Hitchens, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's Hitchens. It's Graves, but it's Hitchens. She married.
Yeah.
So welcome, Kayla. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So what she's going to do, she's going to talk about what she does, and kind of, Kayla, give us a quick journey of how you got to this place right now of where you are in children welfare. So listen, let's open up this discussion and give us a little background of your education.
I have my bachelor's degree from Prairie View A&M University. And then after I completed my bachelor's degree, I went to Cal State San Bernardino and received my master's in social work. And then that led me to child welfare, where I am right now.
So, okay, so Kayla, how long did it take you to do that in case someone want to get in that field?
So my bachelor's degree took 4 years, and then my master's degree was 2 years. So I did the advanced standing, which was 2 years.
Okay. Okay, so hear that, y'all. Get into this field. That's what you're going to have to do. Look, because we have to understand that when you get to a certain place, it takes work to get there,
Yeah,
and you just can't slip and slide through.
definitely not.
You know. So get your education. Those of us, and even in my age,
Yes,
get your education. And it's never too late to change your course of what you want to do in life. She's at this position now. She has a beautiful family, and she is a working woman, and she's in ministry. So she's doing, and she's young. So for those of y'all out there, young ladies, you can still do that. She's a product of that. But tell us your what you do in reference to the child welfare.
so I am on what we call the back end of child welfare. So I would be considered a case manager, or what we call in child welfare, we call it carrying social worker. So I usually deal with families. I usually deal with families who are already involved. That means we took their children. Um,
Hmm.
they're working to reunify with their children.
Okay. And that, and this is in where us the San Bernardino County.
Yes, so I work for San Bernardino County. Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is for them now. Just to let you know, is there a number for people that are not in San Bernardino? Is there like a general number that they can contact in reference to this?
So as in regards to like learn more information about child welfare within San Bernardino County, or
Just in general, if they're not in San Bernardino, is there a general number?
so every county has their hotline numbers to report child abuse. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so for our county, there's a number that we use, and I'm sorry, I will pull it up and then I'll put it in the chat. If there's
okay.
in the chat, I'll put that number in the chat. If you want to learn more about San Bernardino and child welfare within San Bernardino, and you want to see
Mhm.
data or statistics, really child welfare in any California county. Um,
Mhm.
Cal Berkeley is our what we call our host school. That's what we used to call it in grad school. So
Okay.
they do research on all the counties, and they have data on all the counties. So if you go to
Okay.
these websites, you go type in child welfare data or statistics in your search engine, you'll be able to see the numbers of like what percentage of children are in the system right now. Well, you could break it down by race, you could break it down by age. So they have a great database where they do research for all the counties.
Okay. What in these day and times, what are you seeing the most of in reference to our children, what they're dealing with?
Oh. So that's a multi-layered question.
Okay.
Usually, one of my professors, he put it this way: trauma breeds drama, right? So all of our children that are involved with that I'm involved with, all the families that I'm working with, they all have trauma. We all experience trauma to some extent.
Amen.
So really, the more trauma these kids have faced, the more, for lack of better terms, drama that they'll have in their life, right? So really, when I'm working with my children, a lot of mental health diagnosis, schizophrenia.
You know what, Kayla, your sound is going in and out.
Going in and out?
Yeah.
My husband is here to help me, so he's going to help me fix everything, fix the video and the audio. So I'm gonna scooch over so he could do it, because I know I'm on the phone, so it may not be the best. So he's actually gonna step in and help right now.
Okay, so while she's doing this, I just want to say this. We have to learn, our children are very important. And for those of us, and this is happening even in church, because I've been talking to a lot of people, as she stated, all of us come from some type of trauma, some sort of trauma. And all of us have experienced things, those of us that have raised our kids in situations, those that are not in church and out of church. So I am very concerned with our children today, because it's getting a little worse, and we're getting a little careless in the care of our children. We're getting careless in the care of whom they are with, we are leaving them with. So it is important right now that we really hone in and pay attention, really pay attention and help. There are some single mothers out there that need help. There are some single mothers that have never been mothers and that are going through the situation that they're going through, and they need help as well as their children needing help. They're getting involved in relationships that they shouldn't be involved in. So this is running rapid right now. This is why I wanted to focus this month on our children and what's happening and what's going on, because it's real. It's for people like her and others that are really working in this field. It can be very stressful, but I would like to help the people that are out there. Some, even with the family, domestic violence is very prevalent. And the kids are seeing this. So I'm wondering what is going to happen with our children that are, involved in these families that are experiencing the trouble. So I hear an echo.
Is it me?
Do you have it on?
1 second. She said she heard the echo.
Thank you.
Okay, is that?
It's a little. Is that you have it on your phone and computer?
I took it off my phone.
Okay, so that's better. That's better.
That's better. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
better. I was just saying that we really, even those of us in church, we got to pay attention to our children, what our children are involved in, and I'm noticing even in ministry, it's very difficult because these children are in traumatic homes.
Yes.
And without intruding, we're being very careful, but I think sometimes we have to kind of step in and help them. That's why I was asking you, what mostly are you dealing with when it comes to that child? I know it's a wide, it
Oh
isn't
yeah,
domestic violence in there,
most
sexual
definitely.
abuse, you know.
So, so a lot of times we see the situation of abuse within the family,
Mm,
like sexual abuse, physical abuse. We see a lot of domestic violence. A lot of people don't know domestic violence is child abuse, because it places the child in. It could place the child in physical harm. It could place the child in mental harm, emotional
mm,
harm. So I know domestic violence sometimes gets belittled, but
mm-hmm,
it adds on to the adverse childhood experiences for children. And so, and there's a study that has been conducted on adverse childhood experiences, basically meaning like the amount of abuse or the amount of exposure of abuse that a child faces adds on to what we call their ACEs, right? So
mm,
if you have so many ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, that affects your development. It affects the way you communicate with other people. It affects the your interaction. It affects even your physical growth. The study has shown
mm-hmm,
it affects how many illnesses that you have or could have, right? And so ultimately, like you said, there's a wide range, right? But it's so important that teachers, ministers, preachers, any arena that you're in and you work with children or you see children, it's important that you ensure that they have a safe space and that they know that they could come and talk to you. Because what we see is a lot of times things blow up, right, to
mm,
this extreme measure, and then the children are taken. But and the families end up being involved with us. And so, but ultimately, like I said in the beginning, people, trauma breeds drama, right? And
yes,
so, mothers, fathers, they've experienced childhood trauma that they didn't even realize was abuse. And
mm,
then, the cycle continues and they have children that experience trauma, right? That they put through trauma. And then when their child gets taken away, they're like, hey, I grew up that way. I grew up in a household where my mom and dad, they argued, or, there was domestic violence. They fought. It was very hostile. Or I grew up in an environment where there were drugs. There were, my sister was raped. All these things were going
mm,
on and no one came to rescue us. And so that's usually what we face, for all the social workers out there. It's really just this pattern that now we step in and we work with these families and we're really working to, not necessarily act as God, right? But just to
mm-hmm,
offer help and offer solutions, offer services to, mitigate some of the trauma that the children are facing. So it's really hard for me to just pinpoint one thing because we
mm-hmm,
see so much sexual abuse, physical abuse,
yeah,
emotional abuse. We call it general neglect, which is like the lack of resources for your children, not feeding your children,
mm,
um, you know, ensuring that your children is so for San Bernardino County, we based the level of care off of the environment, off of the socioeconomic status of the community.
okay,
So not necessarily you being homeless is causing abuse to your child, but are you ensuring that your child has everything they need, in order to thrive and not to add on to their ACEs, their adverse childhood experiences, right? So that's really what we look at.
okay. So I'm gonna ask a question. I know this may be far out, but for us that are not actively working in your field, how can we help you help them? What are ways as a public we can step in? What are ways as ministries that we can step in to help the social workers um, load? You know what I'm saying? As far as um, publicly wise.
Right. I would the biggest thing that I see as an issue is not creating that safe space for children. And when I say safe
Mhm.
space for children, I mean a lot of topics are taboo. We don't want to touch on them. We don't
Mm.
want to talk about them. Down to the point where, as adults, we even nickname body parts for kids because it's just weird for us, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, we don't name the body parts, but honestly, that's even an important piece for creating a safe space for a child because little Johnny could say he nicknames his body parts, and he's trying to explain to you that Mr. So and so or Miss So and so touched this part, and I felt uncomfortable, and you're like, well, I don't even know what that is,
Hmm.
and so like making sure that our children, um, that we're being as well. We always want to do things in an age appropriate manner, yes.
Yes. Yes.
So really just educating ourselves as adults on how can we have these conversations in an age appropriate manner. How can we make sure that we create that safe space for children to come to us when they are experiencing abuse,
Mhm.
and know what measures to take, right? So when a child comes to us and say they are experiencing abuse, know what to do. So
Mm.
that's very important,
Okay.
because we don't want to get to the point where we're just waiting, or we're telling little Johnny like, "Oh yeah, I understand this is going on, but it's going to be okay," and we're sort of diminishing
Mm.
what they're really experiencing. But we really need to know what to do when these children are not safe.
Right. So, what are some of the symptoms that we can pay attention to?
Oh, that that is good. So I tell a lot of my foster parents, like trauma, it has behaviors that come with it.
Hmm.
So whereas we just feel like, oh, this kid is acting out, this kid is this kid is that. Really, for a lot of our children that are already involved with child welfare that are under my caseload, they have these behaviors, and foster parents are like, oh my gosh, this kid is so bad. But you have to understand that trauma does have a behavior, you
Mm.
know. So whereas you feel like little Johnny is just throwing the chair and he's so angry, why is he so angry? Well, have you ever talked to little Johnny about, how does it feel on the inside when you get upset? Like, what's
Mm.
going on? What do you think about? And sometimes we feel like these conversations are big conversations that we have with our kids, but not really.
Mm.
I have a 6-year-old on my caseload, and very wise 6-year-old, and so I asked, like, how does it feel when you get angry? And he's like, it's just like fire on the inside. And I said,
Mm.
why does it feel like fire on the inside? Well, because daddy had fire on the inside, and
Wow.
this is what happened. So sometimes when we keep asking those open-ended questions, we'll get the answers, and really ask about the behavior. So you could see anything from a child regressing, in age appropriate behavior. So a
Mhm.
lot of childlike behavior for our teenagers. They could be very childish sometimes, and you're like, "What's going on? This child is not developing on the level that they should be developing on." Right. So, like I said in the beginning. Adverse childhood experiences, it can affect the development of a child. It can affect the
Mhm.
behavior of a child. It can affect the way a child eats. So it can limit their eating, or you can see a regression in sleep. It can limit how often they sleep. Just really like, so pay attention to those things. If you have a child, or if you're a teacher and you're like, this child is regressing dramatically, it can
Mhm.
affect their grades, and I'm not saying that, I'm not overgeneralizing it, right?
Right.
So every
Right.
child that's experiencing this may not be experiencing some form of trauma in their home to where you need to call CFS, but
Mhm.
it's always good to check in with the kids, especially for those who work one on one with children, or who work in the childlike setting. It's
Mhm.
very good to check in on the children when you see these huge regressions, right?
Mhm.
And in academic and eating, and even their relationships with their peers, maybe they're not connecting with their peers. It's very important for us to pay attention to these things.
That is really wow. That's good. I have a question for you. Okay, so you basically deal with when you get a call. Um, you have to go out and assess the family, the child, to see what's going on. Um, would you agree with me if they don't get um, what is the word for it? Help. I'll just say help.
Hmm.
By the time they turn 18 or a little older, because if they don't get healed, now we have another citizen, if you
Hmm.
may, out with all this trauma,
Yes.
causes them as they grow up to um, regress in many ways.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or
Yes.
repeat the bad behavior, uh, the traumatic behavior, I'll say. Um, it is repeated. It is known for that.
Yes.
Or to come out in a different way. Um, so is there anything out there for them when they hit 18, or you basically just deal with the children that are like in from toddler stage to 15 or 16?
Yeah. So at this, when I get cases, these, so I watched Roger when he spoke. So he worked on the front end in the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
Uh, or towards the middle of his career, because in the
Yeah.
beginning of his career, he was a carrier just like me.
Hmm.
But so he worked in what we call emergency response. So he went out, he would be the one to go out when he gets a call and it's like, okay, there's suspected child abuse. We need you to go investigate. So
Okay.
he would have been the one to go out initially and investigate and work with these families. Um, at my stage, the children are already in foster care
Mm.
or with the alternative relative, right? Um, there's already been some type of abuse substantiated or found. The court has agreed that the children are safe in the parents' care. So generally, I work with youth from newborns all the way up till 17, right?
Hmm.
So what, because once they hit 18, we consider them an adult. But this is the thing. So I work with the kids all the way up until 17, but if they turn 18, like a month or two after they've been brought into foster care, we still have a program that works with those youth. So
Okay.
that program is called, we call it the Youth and Adolescent Services, right? And
Hmm.
so our 18, I think it's up to 21. I'm not an expert in that arena. I don't work with that population that much, but
Hmm.
I believe it's all the way up until 21 or 25 that they get services. They could get assistance with housing. They could get assistance with paying for college. They get what we call independent living assistance. So, like, help finding a job, help building their resume, stuff like that, because we understand that being involved with child welfare in any manner is traumatic, right? That adds
Hmm.
on to the trauma, right?
Absolutely.
So we're not far removed to the fact that when families are involved with us, it's another layer of trauma that's added. But we want these young people to be able to thrive. So there are services out there for them when they hit that. I believe we start working with them at 15 and a half. We start working on their independent living skills, right?
Mm.
Seeing what they want to do with their life, if they want to go to trade school, if they want to go to college, whatever they want to do. As a social worker, that's what we're here to help with. And so I have had like at least two cases where my kiddos were 18, right? Are turning 18. And so I was able to move them to that unit, and I still check up on them, and that unit is helping them with college, and they have apartments, and they help them. There's so many resources out there they could get help with getting their first car, getting their driver's license, getting their permit. So it's a lot of resources out there. It's just all in the matter of the foster parents or the youth themselves, right? Because I want
Mhm.
to empower our youth to speak up for themselves asking for those resources, you know, like, hey, what can you help me with? I want to do this. I want to go to school. I want a car. What can you help me with?
So y'all hear that out there, even those that may be in the foster facility, when you
Yes.
turn 18, reach out for help. And as she said, speak up because you have
Mm-hmm.
a voice. And you may
Yeah.
help someone under you that didn't think that they have a voice, but now that you open your voice and, you know, open wide for information, it will pass down. I'm glad you said that because I thought that was just it. They didn't have anything once they turned 18. So that is
No, they
good.
have to. And actually, I encourage my young people once they turn 15 and a half, even before that, when
Hmm.
they're 14, I'm preparing them like, hey, at 15 and a half, we're going to start going over your independent life skills, right? You need to check in. You need to do your independent life skills with your social worker monthly, right? So a lot of times what happens is, are you turn 18 and they're like, okay, I'm done with children and family services. I'm done, checking in with the social worker. But there are benefits, there are resources that you could get from your social worker. So talk to your social worker, tell your social worker, like, hey, this is what I want to do, how can you all help me do that? So yeah, please speak up
Good.
and advocate for yourself.
Okay, now I have a question. Another question that's because I'm learning something here. So just say you have a
Hmm.
mother out there, her child was already taken. She
Hmm.
wants to work towards getting her children back or her child back, or even there's males, the fathers.
Hmm.
Um, what are some of the steps they can start doing, progressing to try to get their child back?
So they should be. So it depends on what point they are in their case, right?
Hmm.
So I would always say there's always an opportunity. I think Roger touched on this too. Even when in adoption, we see that parents, kids, everybody still have a say. Kids 10 and older, they still have a say in court, and parents, sometimes they still have visits, and there's still things going on in court, right?
Hmm.
So I don't like to look at it as if a parent is coming to me saying, I want to work to get my child back. I don't like to say there's nothing you could do, right?
Hmm.
So first things first, you need to be present at those court hearings because
Okay.
you need to know and understand what's going on with your case. And then second, you need to be contacting the assigned worker. So if your children are in foster care and they're at the point, um, they're at the point where reunification services are being offered, mom, dad, whoever needs to be in contact with that social worker. What is my case plan? What services am I supposed to be enrolled in, right? To see what they need to do in order to work towards reunifying with their children. Generally, how it works for us is, if I have a case and it's in the process of reunification, those parents are supposed to be enrolled into services. There's certain, case plan objectives that they should be meeting, and they should be meeting with their social worker monthly. If are checking in some kind of way with their social worker monthly. Take
Okay.
initiative. That's the biggest thing. You have to take initiative, because the court, the social worker, they're going to want to see that you're taking initiative to reunify with your child, because that's all a part of their assessment.
Mm. Okay. So basically, if you want your child bad enough, you'll do
Hmm.
what it takes to get your child back
Yes.
and genuinely get the help.
Get the help. I always tell my parents, don't just look at it as I'm completing this class just to get done with it, just to check it off my list. But I go as far as to ask my parents, like, how did you benefit from this course? What did you take away from this course? What are you actually able to apply, right? Because at this stage, if you're involved with CFS, there has to be some actionable steps that you're going to take to ensure that you won't ever be involved with CFS again if your
Mm.
children do come back to you. So that's the biggest thing that we, for me, that I look for in my cases working with my families. Like, I know change doesn't happen overnight, but change is a gradual slope. So what are we working towards? What are we trying to implement? What is something new that you're doing that you haven't done before? So those are just a few things that I would, are just some advice that I would give parents who are in that situation, because it's real, you know.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
it's a real situation for you to be involved with CFS or CPS. It's a real situation, and so I would just say definitely glean from all the courses that you're taking. Take this opportunity to really see how is it that I could be a better parent to my children, right? And I tell
Mm.
my parents, you know what works best for your child, right? So CFS, when we're involved, we're just saying that there was some type of abuse that was done. And so,
Mm.
there was some type of harm done to the children that we need to ensure won't happen again. But we'll give you that opportunity to prove that it won't happen again, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's really what we want to see.
So I'm gonna go left here just for a few minutes.
Okay.
I mean, it's going so fast. We almost finished. So, and I want to talk about this because you touched on this earlier. We in the church, the body of the church, we don't deal with these type of things. We don't. We're hush and we're quiet about it. Um, do you see an incline with those of us that are in ministries, or is it so stuffed and quiet till we keep it to itself and we don't offer any help for that? And if so, how can we get involved in ministry? Should we have, just such as yourself, should we have someone there on staff or on site to have these type of talks, to have these type of sessions? Because as you said, it's real and it's not fake. And I've been through some things my own self, but the resources were not there
Hmm.
naturally. We know God is
Yeah.
a deliverer, we know all of that, but the natural resources is they're not there.
Yeah, most definitely. I genuinely believe it is important that we do um, bring professionals in to have these conversations with our children. I know that things like mental health services are sometimes frowned upon, right? Or
Yes.
even having the conversation about, sexual abuse or physical abuse. These things are frowned upon, right? And a lot of times in spaces like religious settings, it almost gets diminished, right? Or but I honestly, let me say this: within this time of the pandemic, I have seen an increase in pastors, world renowned preachers speaking on mental health, checking in with your children. But also throughout this time during when the pandemic was prevalent, there was also an increase in suicide rate amongst children.
Wow.
So I think that was a little bit of the push for the religious sector to really speak on mental health, to really speak on having these tough conversations with your children. And
Wow.
then we were forced in the house with the kids, right? So it was a lot of things that came out that parents probably didn't know. Our parents probably weren't, really paying attention to in the beginning. So I would say, as we're venturing back out into, somewhat of normalcy, that we keep that same demeanor in having these conversations with the kids. I think it's so important for the religious sector to really be the example of how to have these conversations with the children, and inviting the professionals in. Yes, everything could be done with in decency and in order, right? And everything could be done with God in the middle of it, right? God cared about the children. He cared about their well-being. He cared about our mental health, right? That's why he said, if you keep my mind on you, I keep you in perfect peace, because he understood the importance of the mind and having sound thoughts and having positive thinking, right? So I truly do believe that we can invite these professionals in, and it won't go against what we believe, right? And it won't take away from the God that we serve, and it won't hinder our children into believing, but it will actually create a safe space for them to say, okay, this happened to me and I'm not comfortable with it. This happened and I don't know how to work around it. Or a lot of times we see like children, they commit suicide and it's like, well, what happened? Well, we have to create these spaces. We have to invite them in, because one thing that I learned, and I'm wrapping up, I know, because I could go on and on about this. But one thing that I learned, just from my mentors and from people who have been in this field longer than me, is you could shut a child down quicker than you could build them up, right? And so you have to be very cognizant of the words that you speak, and you have to really pay more attention to their actions, and you have to be the one to talk less and listen more. So that's what I learned. I honestly think that we need to create that space to where we're talking less and we're listening more to these kids, and hopefully they'll feel comfortable in expressing what it is that they're going through, because child abuse is real, and we just want to catch it before something traumatic happens, because a lot of times we do get the traumatic experiences to where, the parent snap and the child is, unconscious or in the hospital on ICU, and we want to stop it before it gets to that.
Yes. Kayla, thank you.
No.
Thank you so much. Listen, you all, if you want, I can say this, she'll get me later, but if you want her to come to your church, your event, reach out to her so she can talk and minister to Pastor Ross always taught us first natural, then spiritual. Because if your natural is jacked up, your spiritual is going to be jacked up, because you're trying to figure things out and you don't understand what's going on. So I thank God for his teaching. So listen, reach out to her, Kayla Hitchens, okay? Reach out to her, have her speak at your event, have her speak at your ministry, have her speak with the children there. This is needed in ministry. We got to get over that taboo. And it takes nothing from God. It takes nothing from his power. It takes nothing from his anointing. But if we put them together, we can get help in the ministry, because the bones are falling out. Okay.
Yeah.
And people can see the bones falling out at church. And they're thinking, well, if they're falling out there, why would I need to be there? So we all need help to a certain extent, all of us, because we didn't grow up perfect. So there were imperfections in our upbringings. So reach out to her, okay? Kayla, thank you so much. I appreciate your gift. I appreciate your wisdom, and I appreciate the anointing that God has placed on your life.
Oh, to God be the glory. Thank you so much. I am honored to be a part. Thank you.
You are welcome. So everyone, I thank you for joining. Listen, you can catch this on YouTube as well. Just put Phoebe Wells, my name right there, Phoebe Wells, and you can see it there. Also on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, it will re-air for the East Coast on our radio station, ICBS Radio. This will be re-airing, and we have about 40,000 listeners or more that listens there. So we just want to spread the good news that there is help. We want to spread the good news that there is resources. If you want a pamphlet or anything like that, please email me. I will be sending them out. I have general pamphlets, so it doesn't matter what state you're in, what region you're in, what city. They are pamphlets. If you need help, if you need assistance, they will get you to the state that you're in. Okay? You guys have a blessed night. Kayla, you stay on, Kayla. Hold on one moment. But y'all have a blessed night. Until next Monday. Next Monday, we'll be talking about infertility. So I'll have a testimony, someone with a testimony that God blessed her. And she was having infertility issues, but the Lord blessed her. And she'll let us know what happened. Okay? So I love y'all real good. Until next Monday. See you soon. Bye-bye.